This podcast episode may contain explicit material. Listener-viewer discretion is advised. The intention is not to offend, but to provide information. Proceed only if you are comfortable with potentially sensitive content.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Behind the Scenes with Sheriff Jason Ard. I'm Jason Ard. We started this podcast to educate everyone on the role of the Livingston Parish Sheriff's Office. We are about serving and protecting our community. On this podcast, we will tackle lots of topics. And on today's podcast, we are talking about the DARE program. I am super excited about that program. I love it. Been a part of it for many, many years. And I have two icons here with me that one, I think, almost invented the DARE program, although he don't look old enough, but he does. Mr. Gene Higginbotham, actual Lieutenant Gene Higginbotham. Thank you so much for being here. As well as Sergeant Jason Hunt, the big famous guy, DJs on the side, all the kids love. So thank you, Sergeant and Lieutenant, for being here.
It's our pleasure.
Thank you, Sheriff.
And so let's start out so people understand what the DARE program means. Like when they see DARE, I get so many people say, well, what does that actually stand for? So won't you tell them, Deputy Hunt, what it actually stands for?
So the DARE program actually stands for Drug Abuse Resistance Education. I know it's been around for many, many decades. I've been in the program now scraping 10 years already. We teach roughly 2,500 kids roughly a semester. So that's how many we put through the graduations that you so graciously
So look, man, this DARE program is it's just really awesome. And first off, let me back up a little bit. So, Deputy Hunt, you've been here how many years?
14, going on 15.
14 years. So where'd you start out at? Corrections?
Yes, sir. Just like you.
Yep. And well, you'll never be like me, but you're on the way.
I'm close.
Yeah. So you start out in the detention center, spent a few years in uniform patrol.
Yes, sir. Went through uniform patrol, and I can actually remember the flood of 16. I actually reached out to you, and Gene and Timmy wound up reaching out to me. I guess they just saw something in me on the road. As we all know, I definitely like to talk a lot. So
said, that's a little brother Tim. That's my younger brother that works here. He was actually a DARE officer.
I took his number.
Yeah.
And the flood.
I wouldn't say it like that. I wouldn't say you took his number, but yeah.
DARE 3, the best number there is.
Yeah. So you, and then how long you been with the DARE program?
Now in the DARE program, just now, once we do this graduation, completing my 9th full-time year in the DARE program.
And just recently promoted to sergeant.
Yes, sir, in December.
Yeah, but well deserved.
Thank you, sir.
Straight up with you. You do a great job. The kids love you. The school system loves you. They said every now and then they got to get on to you, but outside of that, you do a great job. And look, this DARE program, when you're dealing with these kids, now we focus on 5th graders, right?
Correct.
Because I guess the science behind that is that you have their undivided attention at that age. And look, and the most important is they're going to be in junior high fast, like the next couple of years. So we try to prepare them and get them ready for the challenges that we know that they're going to face in the very near future. And that's what the program is built off of. Gene, you've been in there for a long time. So you started here in many years ago.
In corrections 27 years ago.
27 years ago.
Been in DARE for 24. So, I started in corrections and then eventually went to uniform patrol. I was in uniform patrol for about, I think, a year and a half or so, maybe 2 years, and then transitioned over to DARE. So they had a spot come open. I remember it was Calvin Bowden, our captain over in ICAC, and he was like, he was a DARE officer time.
Yeah.
It's like, man, so you'd be interested in coming over? I was like, yeah, I'll give it a shot. So, but and with ever since. So,
man, you guys do a great job. And look, when you look for a DARE officer, I mean, it's a certain person that you have to find. You really do. Not all law enforcement guys are built to be a DARE officer, and I don't say that in a bad way. I have some great deputies, but I have several of them that they can't be in a school because they don't have the patience to deal with these kids sometimes. And so there's days where you kind of have to be a little bit of a kid yourself to be able to communicate with them. And I see y'all have that interaction. I've seen y'all just engage with these children in such a professional way, and they have that such respect. What I love about it most of all is when we're together outside this office, or maybe we are, at Spring Fest or Fall Fest, and these kids run up to you, and it's not a current DARE student. This is someone that's now made it to high school or even college, or even I've heard them tell Gene, I just got married. And, Gene's looking at them like, I don't really remember them, but I know that I taught them in DARE. I can remember a little bit, but y'all impact them that much. Like, they remember what you have taught them, the care that you showed them, the love that y'all, you push out through this program. And so it becomes really interesting. And that's that kind of the what I call the unseen pat on the back that you guys may not realize that, me as in my position as a sheriff standing back watching is a pat on the back for the program, that you guys are doing what you need to do, and you're impacting people at a young age, and they don't forget that. They don't. And that's so important. And I commend you guys for that. And so there's so many fun things about this DARE program. And we have 2 semesters, right?
Yes, sir.
We do a fall semester and obviously a spring semester. And so what's the average that I don't know if we talked about it earlier, what's the average how many students do we graduate each semester?
I think, like I said, I think it's roughly between 2,500 to maybe 3,000 a semester. I mean, with the parish just constantly growing, we're seeing kids in the middle of the semester. He and I will be teaching, our different schools, and it's like, oh, I just got 2 more new kids. They came in the middle of the program, and you try to teach them just like they've been there since week 1. Yeah. You try to catch them
up. You got to
up.
adapt and overcome. That's our occupation. No matter what it is, we're going to adapt and we're going to overcome. It's every day, to me, every day is different, and every year presents new challenges. Like, we don't know what 2025 holds, but it's probably going to be a lot of challenges.
Yep.
And so this is a fun time for us because hurricane season's right around the corner, and so let's have fun before it gets here.
Right.
Exactly.
And we actually have graduations coming up in about a month.
Yeah, and we graduate at the end of each semester. So you'll have your fall graduation, you have your actual spring graduation. So with that being said, I kind of want to dig into the DARE program a little bit. And a lot of listeners out there may not really understand what the DARE program is, what we focus on. And I know we have guidelines we go by with this DARE program, but I know we have a little bit of a uniqueness that we try to do individually. And so I get to go to all the graduations, and I don't get 100% because I can't make 100% of them, but I think I'm in the high 90s. I try to make every one of them.
Absolutely.
I really believe in that, and I know that both of you, including Mia, Deputy Mia's not here, and the ghost Drew Wascombe, he's out there. He's a newer DARE officer. He's been in the DARE program for what, 2 or 3 years now?
About 2 or 3.
He's hitting his third, and Lockhart. And
that's right, Eric Lockhart. And Drew is the newest full-time DARE, so we just moved him this beginning of the year in January.
This past semester.
So he'll be full-time DARE. Mia's moving on. She'll stay part-time. So it's a lot of great deputies out there, and they all teach us one curriculum. And we focus on things like peer pressure. And what's so cool to me about this program is not only having 2 kids who one's married, one probably never be married, but they have went through college, they went through this program. And I've watched other family members and friends of mine, their kids go through this program. And you, at the graduations, you listen to the DARE essays, which I know Deputy Hunt brought an essay. We may pick out a few things to read to y'all, you guys a little later. But in this program, they talk about the back to the peer pressure, but there's so many different types. And like, there's good peer pressure, right?
Yep.
And there's bad peer pressure. And I'm going to let Deputy Hunt kind of talk on that a little bit. I know you was reading your lesson plan on the way over here, so you don't forget.
Well, I was only reading it at the red lights. I wasn't reading it while I drove.
Hey, good answer. Good answer. Good answer. So give us the 2 types of peer pressure, some examples that these are 5th grade kids, and it's amazed me how smart, how much they pay attention to this, and we listen to, which we'll get into with the DARE essays, but.
Right. So whenever we actually do the peer pressuring lesson, which is lesson 4 in the curriculum, we actually get the kids to get up and do little presentations, do little skits. And what's pretty cool about that is we're actually teaching them how the resistance strategies to negative peer pressure. Now, we do have situations in our workbook where we talk about, hey, peer pressure is if I asked my friend Gene if he wanted to go try out for basketball, or what we all know the kids love today is video games, right? Mm-hmm. Trying to pressure.
Game is a big thing.
I know. Yeah. So, hey, do you want to come over and play video games with me? Well, then it breaks it down even more. Well, are these video games allowed in this individual's home? Because some kids are not allowed to play some of these more mature games, and unfortunately, some parents just buy the games for the kids, and that is what it is. So we teach them how to say no. I always laugh and joke, and I tell them, for my stepdaughter, I say, please use me as your resistance strategy. Make me the bad guy to your friends, because most of your friends I taught DARE to, so it's okay if I'm the bad guy in the situation, but use me as your excuse to get out if they try to pressure you into a very uncomfortable situation.
Right. It is very important. And that actually leads in the next topic, which is communication.
My favorite.
And I know it's your favorite. You talk about it a little bit, and not going to cut Gene off. I'm going to let him jump in on some of these too, but the communication is so important. And when I speak at these DARE graduations, we have the opportunity. I remember a graduation each semester is, like you said earlier, 25, sometimes 3,000 students. Well, that brings parents, grandparents, and guardians to this graduation. So I look at that as an opportunity to speak directly to them about things that we see in our world, how they can keep their kids out of trouble and on the right path. And one of those, and I say it every year, I have 3 topics I cover every single year, and one of those is communication. And it's not only are the kids learning what communication is in your program, I'm on another level saying, hey, communication is important to understanding who are they playing games with,
right?
Who's their role model, who they're hanging out with, are you asking those questions? And you also touched on, is that game appropriate? And what is your child doing when they go into that home? And does that home, or those parents of your child's friend, do they share the same moral values that you do, right? What is going on over there? Or your kid, are they drinking in front of your kid? Or are they allowing them to hang out with older kids that you wouldn't? It all goes down to communication. But on the 5th grade level, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a little bit different of how you're talking to about communication. What is your curriculum when y'all talk about communication? What are you teaching the kids at that?
So
that
at the level, we teach them that not only do we use verbal communication, our words, but one of the most important things about communication that I try to drive home with them is, and it's one of my favorite little sayings, what you say and how you say has to match.
Right.
And effective listening. If you're not being an effective listener, like if you, Sheriff, tell me to do something and I don't do it, well, then there's what we talk about in lesson 3. There's a consequence to my action.
And you won't ever do that again.
I promise you I won't, Sheriff. So we kind of we circle back a lot, and we kind of go back over this big snowball that we're building on from lesson 1, and we're just making a bigger and bigger snowball. But with communication, hey kids, we have to listen to what the individual's saying or how their body language is presenting it to you. But more importantly is the 3 different types: unsure, confident, and demanding. And then I know Gene does too, because he taught me how to do it, but we kind of then show them what those things look like, what they have to look for. Mm-hmm. Like if the sheriff calls my phone and then I look, oh goodness, the sheriff's calling me. And then I go into his office, I might not be the most confident person in that particular situation just because I don't know what I did.
That's a guilty conscience, what that's called, Jason.
I just thought it was being unsure.
I said, you got to stop answering your phone like it's a question when you call. It's like, hello?
That's all good. And so, but communication is very important at their age. And a 5th grader, that it's just as important as the next topic I want to get into, and we'll let Gene touch on this, is stress. And I watch the crowd because I can't help it. I'm a person reader. If I'm talking to you, I just can't help it. I'm going to read everything about you to try to figure you out. But as soon as you say the kids are under stress, the parents kind of give that look. They don't know what stress is, but they do, and it's what we kind of forget a little bit about the stress. But can you touch on that a little bit for me, Gene?
Yeah, with stress, and it was just like Hunt was saying that you try to relate things to them of what, especially today, because I know when I first started teaching, like with things like communication and stress, like you didn't have those lessons. It was with communication, you didn't have the cell phones. And of course, now you have cell phones, and I think that's a lost art when you're doing that communication, how you speak to people, and a lot of that goes back to how they deal with stress. Mm-hmm. And with the stress part of it, that it's kind of like you're leading a revival. I know when I start asking questions like, how many of you know that when you tell your parents you're stressed out, how many of y'all do get, you just wait till you guys start paying the bills, and you just wait till you guys start doing this. And I said, and then they start naming your day off, like all you get to do is hang out with your friends all day long, go eat lunch like you're going to Disney World every day. And as they're, yeah, they all start getting riled up. And I say, well, there's a difference between adult stress and the type of stress you're dealing with now.
Right.
Because which the fifth grade, they're becoming more of a almost junior high. They're renaming a lot of it as middle school. Mm-hmm. And so they're having to deal with a whole lot more. They're having to grow up a lot quicker.
Yeah.
And so a lot of them don't know how to adjust to that. So that's a stress for them. They're becoming part of the social game where who you hang out with, all of a sudden playing sports, and, they just had tryouts this last week at Albany and for football. And so you're talking, and they're kind of going their little group, and that can be a lot for some kids to handle. With not only just school, but how they fit in right. their little society. And so you teach them those ways to kind of take a step back and go, hey, what's my priority? What is, what's best for me, instead of trying to just, put that, square peg in a triangle shape. I mean, you gotta find right. your niche. Right. I said, like you said, the graduations, not everybody's going to be, a football player. Not everybody's going to be, the top scholar and whatever.
Right.
You have to find your own thing. And
yeah,
that's the best.
Everybody's going to be different. And look, stress is real. I still remember the most stressful time in my life was in high school. Every day I stepped on campus because I thought I had a test. I did my homework probably. I was not a great student. I hated school, every minute of it, until I found my niche, which was law enforcement, and I couldn't get enough of it. But there is a lot of stress on that campus, and you kind of touched on a little bit earlier. I mean, these cell phones. Now, a kid back, then, I mean, whenever I left school, unless you were with me, I didn't talk to a friend until I got home, talked to my family, and then, we usually ate dinner, and then we get on the phone. Mm-hmm. They never leave your side. They're in your back Correct. Pocket the whole time. Anytime I want to talk to somebody, they just pick it up. And their education level is tremendous. I mean, these fifth graders, without a doubt, are probably at a seventh grade educational level compared to what we were. Not you, Hunt. I mean, you're a lot younger than me, but I'm gonna tell you, it's amazing. I don't know how parents do it today. I really don't. That's such a challenge for parents. And look, we've had so many things go on in these podcasts, and just like ICAC, you mentioned Calvin Bowden. He and I did an episode together talking about all the dangers of these social media, websites. And God, I mean, it's just like so many things going on with that device. Yeah. That we give our kids. I think a lot of times we give them at a maybe too young of an age. And then when you do finally give it to them, even if you wait a little bit, it's, how educated are you as a parent, when you give these devices, and our stress comes from our lifestyle today because of the cell phone, we're 3 to 4 times busier than we used to be.
Oh, exactly.
Right. So it's just a lot going on. So it creates stress, and these kids do experience that stress at an early age. So I think it's important for parents to hear that. And look, you can go on and on. I mean, stress is real. It's out there.
Well, it all melds together, because you're talking about being the effective listener part, and I'll ask them, and so parents listen to any of this. just be self-aware, because one thing I'll ask about the ineffective listener, the phone gets in the way. And I said, how many of you have ever had it where your mom or dad, maybe you're trying to talk to them and they're on that phone, and just about every one of them will raise their hand. Yeah. And I know that's great. Like I said, when you do the graduation about, hey, look, you need to take the time to, which, in law enforcement, we're like married to our phones pretty much. I mean, we have them on us.
I can't wait for my divorce.
Yeah, we are.
It's not coming anytime soon. Yeah. I'm just saying.
We are connected to these phones, and I've had to catch myself when my daughter, I mean, she's 21, and she's going, hey, Dad, I need to talk to you. And a lot of times I'll have to make sure to put that phone to the side, because it's just a habit. You get to look at it.
It is.
Well, and like you were saying, Gene, talking about the phones, and Sheriff saying he wants a divorce from his phone, I can recall asking the students in the class, just this semester here at Live Oak Middle, hey, boys and girls, how many of you all have your own phone? Not a landline, not a tablet. How many of you, and this is no dig towards any parent, trust me, I get it. It's just the way it is, but how many of you have your own phone? And it's so over 3/4.
Like, a lot.
Because we're working, mom and dads are out there working, our guardians. So it's really hard with just how many people have cell phones today.
And most of them can, if you have a problem, you're usually giving it to a younger person to fix it. Because, I don't know half stuff this thing does.
Oh, yeah. Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. I don't even know a percent.
But it's there. It is connected to the stress. Something else that the programs, and I really enjoy Gene when he gets up there. You're not quite as good as Lori Steele is when she talks about bullying. And, when she speaks on my
guys.
behalf. Yeah.
I was bullied.
Yeah.
Stepped on my white sneakers.
So, bullying is a very serious topic. It really is. And look, we like to have fun when we're together. But at the end of the day, we know when there's a serious topic. And bullying it's always been an issue, but now it's a bigger issue with the cell phones and cyberbullying and things that I didn't have to deal with when I was a kid, but they deal with it today. I mean, it's everywhere, and y'all both do a really great job. But for some reason, you kind of stand out to me a little bit, Gene, when you talk about the bullying part of the program. And I think it's because y'all each have like your own little niche, like something that you really can relate to. And it just, you kind of draw that part of the curriculum. So I wanted to speak on the bullying part of it.
And I come from, in my family background, I had all the way back to my great-grandmother, they were educators. My mom was also a guidance counselor. So I kind of had that already, where you try to put yourself in somebody else's shoes, have a little empathy. And there's one thing we're going over the bullying lesson about, of course, we talk about, physical, emotional, cyberbullying. And then when I usually say this, and my kids all, I'm always, me, I'm laughing, joking, and, but you can hear a pin drop when we do the bullying lesson. I get the part, so, you have to be careful about what you say. And I think something like, and how you say things to someone, because a lot of times it gets passed off as joking. Then I'll tell the students, what you need to think about is that you may have a great life, but there's some of your fellow students that don't have a great life. I
Correct.
said, this is the spot they come to. I said, and I pointed to the teachers, and I said, that's the only hug they're going to get today. Mm-hmm. And I remember, I'll never forget this. Years back, I had, I think we're fixing out for like Thanksgiving break, and all the kids, of course, they're, jacked up on Mountain Dew. They're ready to head to the house. I mean, they're ready. And I had the one, I just kind of, to my body language, I can kind of see he's down, and or I was, hey, Bus, are you excited? Tell me about what you're going to do for Thanksgiving. And he goes, he said, I don't know. And you just, again, you just kind of know something's up. And I said, well, man, you're not excited? He goes, no, sir. And I was like, well, what's he? He goes, I'd rather be here at school. And that tells you a lot. And then I start asking about that student, they say, oh, well, talking about his home life and, single parent, and one of the parents was incarcerated, and, of course, you hear about the drugs and things like that. And that said, this was where he knew, that student did, that he was going to get a hot meal, or 2 hot meals, and that, he was going to be loved and be told. And when you start getting the kids think about that. So when I tell that story to a lot of my students, I mean, you can hear a pin drop, and you kind of want to put things in perspective. And again, going back to things like stress. I mean, it's
real.
It
It
is. You
happens.
have to relate it.
For no rhyme or reason. I mean, look, there's people that have a tough home life. There's more than it needs to be, but we don't know what their backstory is. We don't know how that person got there, why the kid may be suffering, but we pick up on those things. We see it. And that's why I always believe, we're put in the right places at the right time to help these individuals. And this program obviously is a way that we are able to touch many, many lives at a young age to help them get through life and hopefully change the game for them a little bit. So, it's so much of that. And, from the bullying, the stress of being, in school and the cell phones and the peer pressures, and it's just a variety of things. And, but one of my favorite things, and I know y'all's is the most favorite too, is when these kids get up and read their essays, because they can be quite comical to me, and because they usually don't have a filter at all. Like, these kids will hang their parents out, and I'm going to say it because mine hung me out. And I remember one of the fifth grade teachers, who was a friend of mine, called my wife and told her that my son, Toby, was really concerned about his mother and concerned about his father because, his mama liked to drink wine and his daddy was sipping on a beer. And at that moment, it was, it was comical, it was funny. But they pay attention to everything, and there's, and I use this analogy all the time. I mean, both of my kids, both of them could probably run the sheriff's office because they rode in a vehicle with me from the time, they were born. And as I'm growing through my career and working investigations and you get in administration, you're always working. When you get off of work, you still had phones ringing and having to make, phone calls, telling them there's occasions where I'd tell them, hey, lay down in the back seat, Daddy, you got to go with this call. Somebody's done broken somebody's house and I'm right there. It's just what we did. And so, that's another form of just, I guess, the life lessons education. But it's funny how sometimes you don't realize how you impact your child. And whenever I speak and talk about a role model, how important a role model is, you are the role model. They're learning their habits from you every day as they're growing up. That's who they're paying attention. They spend a lot of time with their parents, right? But the essays are quite comical, but they speak from their heart. That's why to me, they're just so interesting and so meaningful, because they really do speak from the heart. But I know you brought a DARE essay with you.
I did.
Deputy Hunt did. And I wanted you to kind of highlight. I'm glad that's not tenfold the way you picked that up. I mean, I'm just messing with you.
Sheriff, this 6'3" man child here does not know.
Yeah. So, but if you would,
cookies.
Yeah. But if you would, I want you to share. This is why these guys are DARE officers, because they have a lot of kid in them sometimes when it's appropriate. But if you would, I know that. Just highlight some of the things and this is an actual essay from one of the DARE students. And Jason Hunt brought it with him, and I would like for us to just point out a few things, if you don't mind.
Yeah, 100%. I did kind of just highlight just a few things so I can touch back on it. One of the things that we hadn't really talked yet this afternoon in this podcast was the DARE decision-making model. Which is something else that I truly never knew about ever. And like you said, from whenever I was a fifth grader going through the DARE program, a lot different than what we're educating the youth about today. But the DARE decision-making model in this individual, her essay, she was talking about how she can use it. And the 4 steps of it, it also does spell out DARE as well: define, assess, respond, and evaluate, and how using that model can break down any situation. Mm-hmm. Not every situation's a problem that we go through in life. Maybe it's something challenging, like becoming a DARE officer, something that I never would have thought in a million years that I would do. Well, then you step through and you say, okay, well, if this is a challenge, well, what are my choices? Is it to grab it by the reins and take this challenge and go for it, try something new, maybe impact somebody's life, or just step back and say no and just be comfortable with where you're at, in your comfort zone. which is what I love about, like you said, being in law enforcement. We've got to try so many things. So hearing them writing about using a DARE decision-making model, how it can break down everything. If they try out for the basketball team, if they don't, if they try a new food, a lot of them get this lunch, like you said, they get 2 hot meals a day, and oh man, it's orange chicken today. Some of them love it.
I'll talk about the chicken at the school.
But hey, I tell them it could be a problem or a challenge. It's up to them.
Right.
But like I said, the yellow tab is a model. So what I have used is my words to see what it means. The yellow tab has words such as define and evaluate and respond, which are words in the model I have used to help me out for making my DARE essay. I plan to use what I've learned to keep me safe and away from drugs, how to handle peer pressure, stress, and more. I plan to make responsible choices to keep myself safe and others around me, and definitely not doing drugs. They are bad for your body and can and will harm your body. One of my favorite DARE lessons most definitely was when Michael slips on the milk and it talks about stress and embarrassment. So like I said, this is just what we do every day. We watch videos in the class, that are inside the curriculum, but just to see when they actually stand up there. And this particular young lady that I've held on to her DARE essay all year, because I was just so floored at the graduation. I'm, of course, not going to say her name or the school. When you and I and Jean were there, it's so sometimes just, like you said, breathtaking. She never answered anything in class. She kind of sat in the corner, and it took about half the semester for her to get that comfort. And I can remember whenever I was going through the DARE training academy, I actually had to go twice. Like I was saying, I came in during the flood, and you allowed me to go back, and you let me go to Mississippi to do it.
I'm glad you clarified that you didn't fail and have to go back and repeat.
Yeah, I didn't fail.
Thank you.
I went back due to the flood of 16.
Yeah.
All
remember
hands
that.
on deck. And
Yes.
I remember I was sitting at Wayside Drive, and you said, hey, you find one close, I'll send you. Mm-hmm. And I went back, and that wonderful Lieutenant Sherry Hall in Mississippi, I can remember she said, when becoming a DARE officer, you need to understand your why. Why are you doing this?
Right.
And then she said, like Jean and you said, Sheriff, this child, and it just brings me back to this young girl. That hug may be the only one she gets all day or all week.
Right.
And you know what? She said, Deputy Hunt, it don't matter if they have, well, now it's the talkie things, but Cheeto fingers. This uniform can be washed.
Yeah.
So I've never forgot that for the last 9 years. And just seeing her, whenever I picked her essay, she instantly started crying. She couldn't believe it. And then to see, us give her the awesome little surprises that you allow us to give these kids and their little goodie bags for the essay winners.
Yeah.
She was on cloud 9.
There's so many great essays. And again, some of them can be very entertaining. Their personality comes out, and some of them, their personalities are just awesome. They're very bold in their statements, but they all pretty much make that last little commitment of, I'll never do drugs. I'll always do the right thing. And all we're doing in this program is setting these kids with tools that they're going to need to make those tough decisions, because we as parents know that we've had to make those decisions too. We're there. We've had to do it just like anybody else has. I know what peer pressure is. I know what stress. We all have lived through the life of being a student at a young age, and to carrying on in life. But there's so many things that you learn that you can use, and you want it to be a positive spin on these children, and like I like to get up there and talk about their role model and communication with your children, knowing what they're doing, being up in their business, asking those questions. What kids are you hanging out with? Who's your role model? Identify that person. And we said it earlier, and make sure that whoever they're hanging out with, have that conversation with their parents. You should be calling, what is your moral values? What are you allowing my child to do when he comes to your house? You letting boys come over when I don't, or you letting them hang out with older kids when I wouldn't, is there's language being used at that family. Is there alcohol there? Are there smokers there? You don't know. unless you know, and you got to ask those questions. And
Absolutely.
so it's really important. And one of the biggest things that I also stretch is church, and a good Bible-based church for these kids, because, like, and you said earlier, Gene, not every kid's going to play football, not every kid's going to be a scholar. They don't have that group to be around, which, when a bored kid can get in trouble, right? We know that, we see that, but a good Bible-based church. I mean, we have so many great ones in our community here in Livingston, and the youth groups are awesome, and they keep your child active. And at the end of the day, the most important thing about that is introducing them to Jesus, right?
Right.
And I'm not no preacher, but I also know that there's going to be one day somewheres in this dark world that we live in that child's going to need somebody, and it's not going to be a parent because they're not there to help them. It can't be Deputy Gene, it can't be Deputy Hunt or Sheriff Ard, or even one of their teachers. But at least introduce them to somebody that won't leave them, and give them the what they need to survive, because no matter how dark their world is, he'll always bring light to it. And you got to instill that in them when they're young and they understand. Sometimes once you get them later in life, it may be too late.
Right.
For some things, it's never too late for Jesus. Everybody needs a little Jesus in their life, right?
Well,
but I'm saying, but you don't ever know that. I mean, and the challenges today are just so difficult. They really are.
I think that's one thing that I hear a lot after graduations is that they commend you, a lot of the parents and grandparents, about you speaking about that, because a lot of people are afraid to bring up church or Jesus, especially in schools. And so they just said, man, I'm so glad that he said that.
Yeah, that's because I remember my grandma saying she slapped the Jesus out of me and I didn't listen to her.
Well, and it is good because you can tell that there is all the kids that are in churches here in Livingston Parish, because talking about the help networks, which is our last lesson that we just touched on. And, hey, finding people that you could trust. And they're like, well, Deputy Hunt, who's yours? And I put Jesus in there. I mean, I may put Gene and the sheriff in there as my help network, but hey, we all need encouragement and guidance and advice. And it's awesome to see that these kids are putting God in there.
It is. And we have a great church community that we have a great working relationship. No matter what the issue is, there's usually not a church group here, one of the organizations that or congregation that you can't reach out to that won't be there, Johnny, on the spot to help us out. And so guys, look, man, thank you for what you do. Thank you for choosing to be a DARE officer. Thank you for dedicating yourself to the Livingston Parish Sheriff's Office. You guys are great. Y'all really do. Y'all do a good job. You believe in what you do, and that makes a difference. It really does. And I just want to tell you thank you. I know you are busy and have a lot going on, but I appreciate the time and the effort and coming here and helping us out and speaking with our viewers, and hopefully we gave them a little bit of an education as well. So thank you, both of you.
Well, no, thank you, because, we go to DARE conferences every year, and of course you have the opportunity to speak to other DARE officers across the state of Louisiana. And this is not a knock on anybody, but when we tell them that you're there, pretty much 90% of the graduations and the support that you give the DARE program, and you just see their eyes like, really, man? And I think that you're kind of, in our office, and you especially, looked at as a big, huge supporter of the DARE program. So and we appreciate it.
And I'll just put a challenge out to all those leaders out there, our chiefs and our sheriffs. I mean, if you're going to be in leadership and you're going to believe in these programs, you have to show your belief by showing up and doing the best you can. And at an early, way before I was a sheriff, I've kind of got thrown into the fire of the DARE program and didn't know a lot about it, honestly. And the more I was there and the more I shook hands and seen and listened to the essays and watched the growth of this program, you understand the impact it has on each individual student as well as families. So with that, you don't know that unless you get out there and do your part. And sometimes as a leader, your part is just showing up. And
100%.
And that's just what you got to do. And look, I'm in the, I think the mid to high 90s. So you can't show up to all of them, but you want to make that effort. So if because it is a very important program. So with that, look, that's going to be all for our podcast today. Again, thank you guys, Gene.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you, Jason Hunt, for y'all being here, and just commend you for what you do.
Thank you,
So,
Sheriff.
Thank you for having faith in us. Appreciate it, Sheriff.
Yes, sir. So that'll do it for Behind the Scenes with Sheriff Jason Ard. I appreciate all of you listening. Download our app. Follow us on social media. And as always in Livingston Parish, we love our schools, we love our churches, and we absolutely believe in the Second Amendment. Be safe and be blessed.